Starting and live. And we are live connecting to the World Conference on Online Learning in Toronto, Canada. I'm Joe Murphy. I'm the director of the Center for Innovative Pedagogy at Kenyon College. And why don't we have our friends in Canada introduce themselves?
I'll start. I'm Helen DeWard. I work at Lakehead University here in Ontario.
I'm Jenni Hayman, and I work for eCampusOntario here in Ontario.
Hi, I'm Sean Fraser. I'm an Associate Dean of Teaching and Learning in the Faculty of Health Disciplines at Athabasca University.
I'm Terry Greene. I also work with Jenni at eCampusOntario.
And Yin, would you say hi?
Hi, I'm Yin. My last name is Krieger. I work at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. At Champaign-Urbana. Yeah. Oh, and I work at the College of Business. I'm an instructional designer. I create and manage in the College of Business. Yeah.
And I'm Haveli. I'm an associate professor of practice at a Center for Learning and Teaching at the American University in Cairo in Egypt.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for making time to talk to us. This has thrown me a little bit because the conference doesn't technically start for another half an hour, so I can't use my traditional "how's the conference going" icebreaker question.
Great.
It's going great.
There's a lot of hallway conversations happening.
Yes.
Oh, good. So I know that you can you guys tell us a little bit about eCampus Ontario and what you're doing there to try to coordinate online learning? I understand it correctly.
Yes, so eCampus Ontario is receives funding from the government, from the province of Ontario, and a lot of what we do is to redistribute that funding to our 24 colleges, 21 universities here in spread out all over Ontario. They are developing online courses and innovative teaching practice, technology-enabled teaching and learning. So they're really using those funds to explore new programs and to explore new ways of teaching and learning with technology. That's one aspect. Another aspect that we're working on is open educational resources and open textbooks. Our CEO is David Porter, who's a fairly well-known global figure in open. He has come to us from British Columbia, and we're learning a lot from our BC campus sister organization about what we might do to increase the use of OER here in Ontario. Terry, you're working on a slightly different spectrum for eCampus.
Yeah, it's just been about a month, so I'm still trying to figure out how to log into all the different logins, basically. But I guess the kind of one of the main things I'm working on is this Ontario project, which it kind of piloted this summer with the northern colleges and universities, where they came to Toronto and had a summer institute. There's kind of shades of DS 106 with Ontario Extend, because there's daily work. There's a domain of one's own project. So I currently put out all the Ontario Extend daily tasks. That's kind of the funnest part of my role. But also we're revising it based on the feedback from the Summer Institute, and we're going to deploy it in different ways moving forward. And also I do what Jenni tells me to do.
And we're also working, we have what we call a technology sandbox. So we have a space now where we're exploring some different types of technology-enabled teaching and learning, including open badging. So we're talking about competencies and how we might badge them, micro-credentials. We're talking about experiential learning. So we have a partner called Ripen, who partners with business organizations and academic educators to try and get students to do project-based learning in a way that's useful for those students and for the organizations. And we have a third one. We're partnered with Labster to for some of our instructors to test out in their sections of their courses some of the Labster lab simulations.
Virtual reality stuff. Yeah.
Virtual reality stuff. Yeah.
And you mentioned the CanCred Factory.
CanCred Factory and badging. So yeah, that's kind of fun, that technology sandbox, one of the things that we're doing. And we're at a lot of conferences here in Ontario, just talking about the various things that we're working on. So yeah, it's a busy time at eCampus, but it's really fun work.
I unfortunately had to go to California last week. I just got back a couple of days ago. was terrible.
Well, it sounds like you're.
What?
You want to go ahead? Maha?
You were echoing, so I'm not sure if that was me. I hope it wasn't me. So I just actually wanted to give Sean a chance to tell us a little bit about himself too, because I always see, I mean, I see him around on Twitter, and then I see the Lego, and he's not a Lego. He's actually a human being, so I'd like to know more about him. Please mute. Please let me mute.
Wait.
I'll mute her in a second.
Wait. Oh.
Well, thanks. Well, of course, Athabasca University is in Alberta, and I feel caught in between BC campus and eCampusOntario, and we steal lots of ideas. And the problem for us in Alberta is we had an eCampus Alberta, but that dissolved. So right now there's a giant vacuum, and so I've been constantly stealing ideas. Well, looking at the ideas that you're doing in eCampusOntario and BC, and I don't know why I'm looking this way, because I'm in the middle.
I've been to BC.
He's been to BC, so I can look this way. So from an Alberta perspective, I'm just waiting for that vacuum to be filled and lobbying for our leaders to try to fill that vacuum. And I think our institution hopefully will take a leadership role in doing that. But I'm here to hear what these folks are doing. So that's why I'm face to face because I'm at the conference.
I'm an Athabasca alumnus.
Are you really?
So my Master's of Education and Distance Education is from Athabasca University.
Oh.
It's a fine institution.
Well, thank you.
Provides an excellent education.
I went to University of Alberta.
Me too.
There you go.
So I was wondering if you could give us maybe the short, teaser version of. I know that a lot of you will be presenting once the conference starts. I'm wondering if you could give us a quick rundown of what you'll be talking about in those sessions.
Terry, then Sean, and then Jenny, and then I'll go.
I have one here. I want to get it. You go first.
Okay, I'll go first because Terry's gonna.
He's got a prop.
He's got a prop. I am talking about the 3 pillars of educational technology from Terry Anderson's work writing, and PLS, PLN, and LMS, and how they can support student learning. And I'm going to meet my co-presenter from Lakehead University for the very first time.
That's fun.
Go ahead.
I am presenting, I have 2 presentations. One is on my research. So I'm talking about open educational practices and open educational resources and online learning designs and problem-based learning and the sustainable development goals. So I don't know how I'm going to squeeze that into 10 minutes. It's going to be really great.
Just speak quickly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually a health researcher by trade. And we're going to talk about our new health promotion focus that we've developed in our graduate program. And we call it Health Promotion 2.0 because we're leveraging some of the Web 2.0 tools like you've talked about, the personal learning networks. And we're going to try to operate outside of the LMS to have students creating open content, non-disposable idea, and all that sort of thing. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Cool. I'm going to talk about this open faculty patch book. It's a physical copy, which makes perfect sense at an online conference. But I'm going to tell people about it and a bit about the stories. Like Jenny and Helen wrote one each. Also, just basically to try to drum up business for more, and also as the open learner patch book possibly, which would be patches written by students, or maybe a podcast. Maha.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was such an exciting project, and I'm really excited about trying to learn one. Because my students, for some reason, this semester are interested in education, even though they're not education majors or anything. But I wanted to ask Sean a question because a friend of ours called Jeffrey Kiefer works with healthcare professionals, and he says it's always a struggle for healthcare professionals, especially, to work in the open because a lot of their work is more about not being open. So I was curious about your project because you're saying most of it is outside the LMS, and that sounds like it must be there must be so many complications in getting that done.
Yeah, so one of the things we're doing to modernize our curriculum is really directly hit the idea of digital literacy head on. And this is relevant for health professionals in terms of establishing they have public profiles on Twitter and Facebook and so on. So we're going to sort of get them to think about how to do that responsibly, how to engage in social media for professional practice and those personal learning networks and connecting. Now, and it's not all outside the LMS. The LMS is a safe space, and there are going to be situations where people do not want to be entirely open. So if we have someone doing a blog or a website, they can sort of lock it down and not make it public or searchable. But we're trying to get them to establish a professional presence, because we've got nurses and dietitians and OTs and PTs and all kinds of health professionals who maybe want to have that professional digital presence.
There's a pharmacy technician program at Fleming College, and they've been blogging for a couple years, and they have to obviously talk about what's open. Like they talk about their what do you call it when you go do a placement, but they obviously don't share where they did it or anything like that, so they know what to share and what not to. But employers later said they loved seeing the improvement of their reflections and what they've done throughout their blog. So it helped them secure employment.
Great.
So then I would recommend to write less smart than you are at the start. So here's smarter in the end. And then you.
Yeah, I'll write that down.
I'm gonna go edit some of my blogs back down to like base level.
Yeah, from a while ago.
Before.
Oh, I have some great early blog posts for displaying my growth. Well, it strikes me as interesting as I work with faculty to try to get them to be open. It seems to me that a number of issues are at least parallel in terms of things like student privacy, in terms of any issue around your professional presentation online. It seems like there are a lot of opportunities, given that health issues are different in important ways, but it seems like there are a lot of interesting parallels.
So Joe, are you presenting?
I am in Ohio, so.
You weren't here.
So I have a question. Can I ask about this conference? I mean, this is new to me, this online World Conference on online learning. I've actually never heard of it before. It seems to have started in Canada. And what audience actually, it says I was reading the website and it was saying that it's actually it has global membership, but it hasn't become that. I guess it's slowly growing and reaching out to various institutions, more so I think in Canada. So is there like a different, I mean, what's the audience, target audience and so on?
Well, what is ICDE exactly?
I actually don't know. This is my first time at this conference.
Yeah.
I think.
So when is the call for proposal and all this, you know?
The main organization is Contact North, which is an Ontario organization that works to with distance ed, mostly northern, but like, for example, Lakehead or what's the college in Thunder Bay? Confederation. They're in Thunder Bay, but their campuses, 14 small campuses, are spread around a space the size of Texas, with like 50 people in various areas. So they enable that live distance ed classes from Thunder Bay to these satellite campuses. That's kind of what Contact North does, and they're the main organizing people here.
So Helen has some good inside information. The ICDE stands for the International Council for Open and Distance Education.
So it's international.
Yeah, so it's international. There are a lot of presentations from around the world. There are a lot of delegates that I've run into already from different places in the world here. Just today, I ran into Martin Weller, Stephen Downes, Tony Bates.
Stephen Downes is very tall.
Yeah, I noticed that you have some really key figures and thought leaders here for the conference.
Yeah.
And yet, this is the first time that I'm actually hearing about it, which is good. If I went on Twitter, I wouldn't have heard of it actually.
Yeah, I would say that it's not like OE Global. Its focus really is online teaching and learning, so distance education, technology-enabled teaching and learning. It's very technology-oriented and pedagogically how to teach in those spaces. I think that's the firm orientation and the audience.
I think the ICDE conference happens every 2 years in a different place, and it takes a different flavor. And I think the 2 years ago it was in South Africa, and Paul Prinsloo organized it. And I remember because my boss was one of the keynotes, but he also had Audrey Waters, and he had Tressie, and he had Laura Chernovich. So it was a really, really good, and Joyce Seitzinger. So what I remember about that was that it was a technology conference, and 5 of the keynotes were women.
Good, yeah.
And that was like, wow, oh my God, Paul, I can't believe you did that. You know? And then I think the rest of his keynotes were all African.
Great.
You know, there were panels of Africans. So it was a really, really good, but it doesn't feel like there's any connection between that one and this one. You know, in that sense, I think ICDE as an organization, they give the conference to somebody, and then that somebody imagines it however they want.
Also, it's interesting that they use the phrase distance ed. I mean, ICDE. That means it started way back before the widespread use of, you know, internet or social media or stuff like that, you know.
And the other piece is that it's not just higher ed academic. We were having a conversation this morning with someone who isn't in the academic sphere, but in the corporate learning space. So that was an interesting conversation as well.
Yeah. So I think it seems to be more diverse and inclusive of different players, you know, in the industry and also in higher ed. Yep.
Yep.
Do you want to say hi?
So are you all in a room at the conference hotel, or
we're in the hallway?
We are
this is the hallway?
literally in the hallway. And we just literally have people walking by who want to say hi.
Hi, I'm Janana, and I'm the doctoral candidate at Athabasca University for my presentation.
and we connected on Twitter.
Yes.
I
was asking, when is the call for proposal for this conference? Like around which month?
I think it was around April.
It was, and then ended, it closed.
Oh, I didn't know that was how you pronounce your name. I was trying to figure out who you were, and then I just realized, oh, I thought your name was pronounced, how do you say it again?
Janana, DJ
Okay.
sounds like.
Yeah, I just assumed the J was a yeah sound, and I realized that it's not, it's just pronounced the way it's written. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to
Been
meet you.
seeing you for a long time on Twitter.
Yes.
So you're saying the call for proposal starts in April?
And closed at the end of June, because I know we were scrambling trying to get our proposal ready for the end of June.
Yeah, I did
All right.
Yeah.
So where's the next one? Do you know?
No, I
But we'll tweet it out when we find out, Yin, okay? We'll make sure we tag you, okay?
yeah,
Well,
they'll probably be.
sure it'll be in Europe or somewhere like South Africa. I don't know if I can get there.
And Mahab points out that it's every 2 years, so it will be in 2019 probably.
Plenty of time to save money for it, are you saying?
So Janana, what is your presentation on?
On students with disabilities and accessibility and openness for students with disabilities in online higher ed.
Very interesting.
You know, Yin works on accessibility. And
A bit of that, yeah.
I mean, in the first session this afternoon.
Sorry, Maha, you were saying Yin works on accessibility? Is that right?
I used to work more on it. Here I don't do so much, but I still have to because of online learning and ADA compliance, you know, issues that we have with the online programs. And we've been getting, well, this semester we have some blind, well, I would say one blind student in the course, and we were trying to find the best way to make the documents accessible to him. And it seems as if I'm learning that they have their preferences as to how they want to, access the information. They may not want to use a screen reader. They may use multiple methods to access the information. So that was pretty interesting to me, that even though we say, well, maybe you do this and you do that and you'll get it right, but actually it's all pretty unique, every case. So yeah, I mean, maybe you can share a little bit more.
Yes, I think that we will. It's pretty much along those lines that you have mentioned, what I have found out in my research.
Right, that even though you think, yeah, maybe this is a standard approach to comply with ADA, in the US, but then you find out that, well, he still thinks that we're not doing as much as he wanted, and that he would prefer that we actually tailor it more to him. So it'll be interesting if you have a few of these unique cases together. So we're finding that, it's challenging. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a light bulb moment here, that how is it that we assume that only, like, as long as you find a way to make it accessible, then that way is going to be comfortable for that person. And I think, I don't think I've never thought of it that way. And now that you've put this in my head, now I'm going to go crazy with it. because of course, just because they have one disability doesn't mean that within that one disability there's only one way to reach them, or that that's the best way to reach them. And I used to think if you reach them in some way or other, that's fine, and now, wow, okay, well, thank you.
We just realized, I guess maybe some of them are new to, accessibility and how to, they're trying to do accessibility, but they may not understand the nuances of this subject matter, in the sense that you may do it, but you may not understand it fully because you don't have the theoretical part of it. You don't understand the shades of disability and what disability is. That it's pretty complicated. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, please go ahead. One of the things that we've seen is just the issue of keeping up with student preferences as they change. Not only individually, and I guess as I'm thinking about online education, I find myself very curious about what levels of technology students have. We've seen a change on our residential campus in terms of what technologies students have already gotten accustomed to and are bringing with them. And again, this is a case where, if we can meet the students where they are, they're going to be a lot more engaged. They're going to be a lot more successful in learning. And we may have to change our best practices accordingly. And then we've also had a couple of interesting case studies. We had a blind student who took both astronomy and music. So we had to figure out, Braille notation. Braille notation for music on our janky old Braille printer. We had to figure out a thermal printer for class diagrams, all of which is doable, but had not come up because previous students who needed visual accommodations hadn't hit those.
My interest is a little bit beyond access and technology. It's actually how students with disabilities interact, and what are the interactions with peers, and not only with the system and technology, but with peers and instructors, and what is the implication for teaching and learning beyond an accessible technology. So how do we have to design our courses differently to make them accessible and inclusive, rather than unwillingly exclude somebody because we just didn't consider it. So a lot of barriers could be, I believe, removed in the way how we design interactions if we just think a little bit more openly, creatively. So, and I think that we do have a lot of examples that we can say we know how to do it. It's just a matter of doing it.
We're going to have to wrap up, I think, team. Our sessions start very soon.
Oh, okay.
And we're not sure where we're going yet.
Well, good luck. Do you have any closing thoughts for us? Or
look forward to reporting more as we experience the conference and sharing that with the community. Yeah.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Good luck finding your sessions.
Bye.
Bye.
I think if that's it, shall we sign off?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.